What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show here on Sherdog.com. My name is Sheehan, and today I am back with my bets for the week in the world of mixed martial arts. And what a week we have ahead of us, even with the massive UFC 294 show. And I'm going to concentrate totally on that. I know there's other bits and pieces of MMA around the world this week, but I'm giving you all my 5 bets from UFC 294 from 4 fight stuff. Funnily enough, I've done that a couple of times before, but I'm doubling down on this, and I'm going with the last 2 bets will be from the same fight, because I think it's an interesting fight. But we will get to all of that. Do you know what? It's been a crazy week in MMA with the whole USADA situation, with the whole change up of opponents in the main event and co-main event for this card, which have both happened in the last week, and all the rest of it. You know, that always goes down in mixed martial arts. So it's it's good in some way to kind of get back to the fights, and that's what we will do here through the medium of making, or more than likely probably losing, some money. Let me know in the comment section below what bet you're betting on this week. Let me know your best bet for UFC 294. I'm going to recap all my bets at the end as well, because I know some people are like, oh, what's the bet? I'm writing it down. But they do come up on screen, but they'll all be at the end as well. But before we get to that, let's recap. Last week we had a bit of a bounce back week. Last week we got back to even par. 2 out of 4 bets last week. The Flier didn't hit, but we got 2 out of 4, which I will take any week after the last few weeks we've had, especially last week where we went 0 for 5. Hopefully we don't have any more weeks like that. But two good bets last week. Tobias Lee at plus 130 over in KSW. He got the win over my countryman Carl McNally in a very entertaining good fight there. The other bet that hit was Barboza Yusuf over 2.5 rounds. Now, sometimes I come on here and I cry foul after getting unlucky in a few bets. This was one of the ones where the MMA gods shone down on me. I was about 30 seconds into the fight and I'm like, okay, wait, this bet is down to Swanee. But thankfully, Barboza pulled through, and what a fight it turned out to be, and what a comeback it turned out to be from Barboza as well. So the over 2.5 rounds hit at minus 160. I would call myself a little bit unlucky on the other 2 bets. Samir Caddy, great comeback by Paddy Makhachev over in Cage Warriors, but I suppose he was dominating that fight, but as I said, great comeback, and all credit to Makhachev. Feel like they'll fight again, as I said last week. So that plus 160 bet, I'd say if anyone had bet on that, they thought it'd be looking good in the middle of the fight, but it didn't. And then Ryan Shelley, coming off a loss, ended up, if people didn't see the fight, he got kind of slammed. He hit his head off the ground and then got finished straight afterwards. It's a weird one, a very unfortunate one. Again, I think we can find ourselves a little bit unlucky in that one. And when you give a heavyweight knockout, it can go either way, and that's what happened with the Flier, as Martinek actually himself got knocked out. So we got the 2 bets anyway. We're back on even par, and we're going to rise up and get even better this week as we head into UFC 294. Right, I'm going to start with the co-main event and the main event in my first 2 bets. And let's talk about the co-main event first. My first bet, I'm going for Chimaev to win by decision at plus 250. It was interesting when these odds came out. I suppose the difference between maybe what people would have thought and what they actually are. So the straight up betting price on that one is plus 215, minus 275, around that right now. When it opened up, and that's for Usman is plus 215, minus 275 for Chimaev. These bets have been going around for a good while now, but when it opened up last week, it was plus 158 for Usman, and now he's plus 215, as I said. And for Chimaev, he has gone all the way from minus 168 to plus 275. So there's been a big change in that over the last while. So I think when that happens, and I do think Chimaev will win, I'll explain why in a second, I think you have to look for bets in the middle of that and look for props to see can you get a better price in the middle of it. And that's the one that stood out to me. The fight, I like the fight to go to decision as well, plus 125. I was looking at maybe going that one, but I do fancy Chimaev to get it, so I went for him to win the decision. If you fancy Chimaev inside the distance, him by submission, plus 300. Just inside the distance itself, minus 110, which is not a bad bet at all. Maybe if you fancy that and you fancy the short notice and all, but or Chimaev to win via knockout at plus 225. But the one I've gone for, plus 250 to win by decision. And the reason I've gone for that, first of all, people will probably say, look, Shawnee, he's taking this in short notice. Will he be able to go to 3 rounds? It feels like there's a slight difference between, and we'll talk about the other fight in a minute, but it feels like there's a slight difference between the Usman one and the Volkanovski one. Like Volkanovski's just coming off of a fight, just coming off of surgery, and was about to book another fight in January, and like it feels like it was about to start the camp in maybe a few weeks. It feels like, and I don't know whether this is right or wrong now, but it feels like Usman has kind of been drawn for a fight for a good while. Like, it feels like he's been looking for a fight. He's been staying prepared to maybe take something on short notice. And he saw this opportunity and he took it. It feels like that to me a little bit. Now, maybe I'm wrong on that, and maybe that'll come out in the wash afterwards, but there definitely has been rumblings from him and his team on social media for various fights over like the last, couple of months since, or more even, since the last Edwards fight. So from that point of view, that's my call. Now, whether that call is right or wrong, I suppose we'll find out on Saturday night. And I suppose that's what betting is. That's what betting is about. On the fight itself, my good friend Harry Powell, who you'll see on Sherdog with me this week, made a really wise distinction on what this fight is, and he said it's control versus chaos, and I think he's dead right. The control of Usman versus the chaos of Chimaev. Who can get what where? I think, and the main reason actually why I'm going for the decision and for Chimaev to win the decision is I think that control from Usman will not necessarily win out in terms of winning the fight or winning rounds or anything like that, and maybe it will a bit, but I think it will win out in terms of the early goings of the fight are are as the kind of the antidote to Chimaev's chaos, right? And it might be the antidote to the chaos, but it mightn't be the antidote to all his skills, if you want to put it that way. You saw Gilbert Burns went to a decision with him. And it's not that Gilbert Burns is as calm a fighter or anything like that as Usman, but he's a very good technical fighter in all areas, on the ground, standing up, jiu-jitsu, and all of that. So the point there is the calmness of Usman, I think, will, it will bring down the acidity, if you want to say, of the Chimaev game. And the other side of it, as I just said, I think the technical ability and his tactical ability too will not make it as easy on Chimaev as most of these fights are. When he goes in there, I'm just looking at some of the names: Kevin Holland, Li Jingyang, Gerald Marshall, good fighters. But he's just so abrasive, aggressive, chaotic that he just destroys those people. Can he do that to Usman? My call on it is that it will look somewhat like the Burns fight, but less chaotic. I think Usman will move away a lot more, will be a lot safer, will use his jab, will counter wrestle him when he needs to counter wrestle him, will not allow him to take, Usman will not allow himself to be taken down by Chimaev the way other people are. Like, I even think Burns, and not that he let himself be taken down, but I think he was happy enough to fight on the ground with Usman, with Chimaev, knowing his jiu-jitsu was that good. So I think Usman will have success there. But I think the other side of that is, to do that, to have success there, is a very defensive sort of success, in my opinion. And I just wonder, can he add the offense onto that to win the actual fight? Like, will he be able to take Chimaev down himself and land on top and get takedowns? It feels like Usman and Covington kind of fought each other twice. and have kind of continued to fight each other, and they don't wrestle as much as they do anymore. And I'm just talking about both of them there. Even though Usman did wrestle a little bit against Edwards, but I would say probably not enough, and not successfully in the second fight anyway. And will he be able to do that to Chimaev? I'm skeptical of that. So if you call it even in the offensive wrestling arc, if Usman can stop him, who's going to win the offensive striking arc? I think if that control is something that Usman can get, look, he can do it over 3 rounds and pick him off. But how much control can you actually have against someone who's as chaotic as Chimaev? That's where I think the breakdown in that control will happen. I think it's a very close fight, a lot closer fight than that those odds suggest. And I was even thinking about maybe popping in Usman here as one of my bets based on the, as I talked about earlier on, the changing prices. But when I saw the fight to go to decision, I saw Chimaev win at plus 250, I had to go with that bet. I just think what everything I said there, that was my thinking of the fight before I looked at the bet. My thinking of the fight was calm, Usman calms down Chimaev, but Chimaev wins out because he has that extra little bit that will turn a judge's card from a 10-9 one way to a 10-9 the other way. And I'm not sure Usman has that against a matchup like Chimaev. The thing about this as well is, like, that's conjecture now, and it's plus 250 and I'm giving it based on that price, right? This is a hard fight to call. Another part that makes it a hard fight to call, and we'll move on from it in a second now because I could spend an hour talking about this fight, but neither of them have really ever faced anyone similar to the opponent. And I think, what is the reason for that? What is the reason for that? There's very few people out there like Chimaev, who fight as insane as he does with the skill set he does. And there's very few people out there with the skill set of Usman, right? He's a really good jabber, a very detailed, controlled striker, and a top wrestler and grappler. There's very few people out. You don't meet those people until you're fighting at the very top of the division. The last part, I think, that works for Chimaev is the weight. Now, obviously, they both fought at 170 before. Chimaev always struggled to get to 170, whereas Usman was the champion at 170 and all of that. I do think that will help the cardio as well if we're talking about a long fight and a decision. And it's obviously 3 rounds here as opposed to 5. I do think that will help Chimaev. And I think that will see him over the line. So based on all of that, I'm going for the Chimaev decision, and at plus 250, I like that. So a bit of a bigger price there. A bit of a smaller price though for the next bet, and I'm going in the main event. I'm just going for Islam Makhachev straight up at minus 250. Honestly, if you had shown me those prices a week ago, I probably wouldn't have gone for this bet. Plus 200 for Volkanovski, minus 250 for Makhachev. Just a few of the other bets there before I get into maybe my explanation. Volkanovski to get the knockout plus 400, as is Makhachev. Volkanovski submission plus 2,000, plus 300 for the Makhachev submission. That's not a bad price at all, I don't think there. If you like the Volkanovski decision, plus 450. If you like the Makhachev decision, it's plus 180. And that was another one I was looking at. But I kind of backed out for that, and I'll explain to you why here in a second. I rewatched the fight yesterday in full, and I do a show over in the Sphere of my Patreon. The rewatch, I think I mentioned it a couple of weeks ago as well, and I basically kind of do from my point of view, an analytical look at all fights, and I did that one this week, obviously because it's coming up. And what I saw in that fight, looking at it just analytically with no commentary on or not thinking about judging or anything, was a completely different fight, right? So, as I said, I'm not thinking about judging, I'm not scoring the fights, and this is no way a reflection on how the fight is scored or anything. But watching back that fight, it's hard to say that Makhachev wasn't a far better fighter than Volkanovski in that fight. And I don't mean the whole fight, but for large periods of the fight. Like, and I'll say that, right? And also I'll say Volkanovski adjusted very well, but Makhachev adjusted to those adjustments every single time. And the adjustments he made to Volkanovski's adjustments were way more effective than the initial adjustments. And I'll give you a couple of examples, right? So the fight started off with a lot of hand fighting and not much really landing. And then we had Volkanovski landing one shot in a combination throw. So after that, Volkanovski attempted to throw more combinations, but like, and this is a contradiction, but a single combination. So he said throw like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then he go out and made another 30 seconds, 1, 2, 3, 4 again. So Makhachev saw that immediately. Volkanovski maybe landed 2 shots, and then what Makhachev did was after the 1, 2, 3, 4, then he threw. So he was waiting for the combination, defended very well from the combination, and then threw. And then at that point, Volkanovski realized, well, I can't throw in like those combinations anymore. I'm going to have to add something onto it or take something away. First of all, he added on, he was throwing in double combinations. So he threw the combination and was straight in with another combination before Makhachev had the ability to land that shot. That worked well for him for a second as well. But then Makhachev kind of became a little bit more defensive, or was hitting him a little bit earlier and getting out and kind of taking away the ability to land the 4 and the 4 and the 4 again. So that adjustment was very, very, very good, right? I think the other adjustment that he did was when Volkanovski didn't took shots away and just started jabbing and started throwing single shots, he started countering a way better. Like Makhachev was countering throughout the fight and did way better, but he started countering with, I think Jack Slack actually put up like a counter right hand he put up recently, but also countering with the takedown. Like when Volkanovski was coming in, it's easier to time almost the one shot than the combination, because you know what the first shot is going to be. It's very hard to predict what shots 2, 3, 4, and 5 might be. So he was predicting that, going underneath and countering. And that kind of took the one shot, just the jabbing or just the, coming in from the outside ability away from him. And then when Volkanovski came inside, so like Volkanovski usually beats guys in the pocket. He beat Holloway there. And Holloway is excellent in the pocket. But Makhachev beat Volkanovski in the pocket because of his size. Volkanovski has to be either a step outside of the pocket or all the way inside. And that's a very hard thing. That's like almost out of his game. So what makes Volkanovski, in my opinion, the best fighter in the world, or the second best fighter in the world, one of the greatest fighters of all time, is his ability to dominate in the pocket. And Makhachev almost takes that away. So I find it very hard to see a way for Volkanovski to win that fight. Like, single shots didn't do it the last time. Combinations didn't do it. Multiple combinations didn't do it. In the 5th round, people say, okay, push the pace, and he got a little bit tired. He's taking on 11 days notice. That's going to be harder to do this time. Coming off of surgery, going to be harder to do. And also, I think that was massively overplayed. And I myself am probably guilty of that, to be honest. But having gone back and watched it, I think there was a clash of heads there, first of all. Plus, it was only like maybe 45 seconds or a minute. Volkanovski got on top after that clash of heads, and he landed some good ground and pound, but there wasn't anything massive. Now, him pushing the pace before that and taking more risks actually gave him the best portion of the fight he'd had. And he definitely won that round, if you want to talk about that or whatever. But I wonder if that is a path to victory for him here. And if it is, Makhachev will not have an answer for it. And I find that very hard to believe. After what had happened in the first fight, I find it very hard to believe. I think Makhachev will win this fight. I think his countering ability, again, the calmness of him, I think he'll win it. This fight, I've said it this week a couple of times. I think this fight will either be the exact same as the first one or very different. And I feel like it's more likely to be the exact same. The way it could be more different is both of them make major adjustments. But I don't really see that happening on short notice. So Makhachev, it may be not on the scorecards or whatever, but in the technical analysis of that fight, he dominated the first time, and it's very hard to see him not again. And at minus 250, I'll take it at that price, to be honest, after watching the first one. So there you go. That turned into an analytical show there for the last 10 minutes. So let's move on from that. The next bet I'm going for is an interesting one, and it's not a bet I've given before, but it is one I will give now, and it's on the Aliskerov fight against Warlley Alves, and it's sorry, I always mispronounce his name. So it's Aliskerov. I always say Aliskerov for some reason, but it's Aliskerov. And it's him to win in round 1 or round 2, and it's minus 180 for that price. So he can win, basically he wins under 2 rounds. And the reason I like that bet is I do fancy him for the finish, but I was looking and searching for a price that gave me that. Ikram is minus 599 to win straight up. In some places up as far as minus 670 here. The under prices, I didn't like them massively. Minus 163 for the under 1.5 rounds. Minus 350 for the under 2.5 rounds. So I gave myself an extra bit of wiggle room there. I do think he will win the fight. He is plus 140 to get the knockout, and for the submission he's plus 175. Now he's fighting Warlley Alves, who is a very good submission artist and can fight on the feet as well. So you would more likely go with him to win by a knockout at plus 140, but I've given myself an extra bit of room there. And I've given myself an extra bit of room in terms of the method and in terms of how long that method will take. So, round 1 and round 2 finish. I watched his last 2 fights, one in the UFC and one in the Contender Series. And the thing about this guy is, you see, chaos seems to be the word for the day. Some guys cannot cope in the chaos. This guy lives in the chaos. He's always like, he should be called Bane or something. He's so good at, like, Phil Hawes brought it for him. His opponent, Mario Souza, in the Contender Series brought it to him as well. And he was happy enough there. He took shots, and the power he has, his wrestling ability is just really, really, really phenomenal. That shot he landed against Hawes in a fight where Hawes, it only went 2 minutes, but Hawes was winning that fight. You know, it's hard to say he was winning when he got knocked out in 2 minutes, but you know what I mean? It was like he was pushing the pace, and it could have, if he was fighting a lot of other people, they would have wilted to that. Not necessarily to the pace, but to the not even necessarily to the pressure, but to the game plan. And Aliskerov did not. And he absolutely put him out with that straight 1-2 down the middle. And watching Warlley Alves is fighting, like, Warlley Alves is not in the best run of his career at the moment. Last 3 of his last 4. Did beat Munir Lazzez, though, who is not a massively dissimilar fighter to Aliskerov, to be honest. But he did lose to Nicholas Dalby in a very close fight last time out. And I went back and I watched the entirety of that fight. Well, even if you go back and watch the start of that fight, the war he got into with Dalby, and Dalby does drag you into it, but he seemed happy enough to fight in that war. If you do that against Aliskerov, that's not going to end well. That is not going to end well. He has too much power. His wrestling is too good as well. He will take you down. He will submit you, even if you're as good as Warlley Alves. You know, he's been submitted once in his career against Randy Brown in 2019, funnily enough. So it is possible, but I think Warlley Alves will be too willing to fight with a guy who you probably shouldn't be willing to fight with. The problem with Aliskerov, though, is if you're not willing to fight with him, he'll probably just go across the cage, take you down, and destroy you anyway. So I think that's going to happen. I think Alves is going to fight with him. He's going to probably get taken down, or else he's going to catch that 1-2 down the middle, and that unbelievable power of Ikram Aliskerov, and he'll get finished. So that's my bet, minus 180. Aliskerov to win in round 1 or round 2. Right, to my last 2 bets. First of all is bet number 4, and then we'll have the Flier, and they're both on the Ankalaev Walker fight. My call on this is it's going to be a little bit longer of a fight. So the first bet I'm going for is the over 1.5 rounds at minus 150. I just have a feeling it is going to be a little bit longer. You look at Ankalaev's record, and he has had 19 fights, and 9 of them have gone to a decision, which for a light heavyweight is a pretty big percentage. Now, Johnny Walker hasn't had that many, but we know Johnny Walker has very much changed the way he fights in the last few fights. You know, he's only had 4 decisions in his career, but 2 of them have happened in the last 5 fights. 3 of them have happened in the last 6 or 7 fights. Went to decision with Krylov, went to decision with Santos, and went to decision with Anthony Smith as well in his last fight out. And I think that's the sort of fight we're going to have here. I think we're going to have a longer fight. I think both of these guys are going to fight in a outside, I'm the longer guy, I'm the taller guy sort of way, even though both of them can be longer and taller guys. But you know what I mean? Like, Ankalaev, that's kind of the way he fights. He kind of fights long on the outside, out of the southpaw position, with a little bit more movement than most guys have at 205. And then, you know, obviously heavy wrestling when he gets in there. We saw even against Blachowicz early in that fight, he was able to, was it earlier, was it in the first or second round anyway? He was able to take him down. You know, he's a good takedown in him when he needs to be. Whereas Walker, now, the way he fights, like, it's funny talking about Johnny Walker. It's almost like there's 2 Johnny Walkers. There is, I made this reference on a podcast this week. I don't know if everyone will get it, but there's this famous TV show here in Ireland, and it's called Father Ted, and there's this guy on it. His name is Henry Sellers, and he works for the BBC, and he comes and he's like this reformed character, and he's a good guy and everything, and he's 1 sip of sherry and he goes insane, right? It feels like Johnny Walker's a little bit like that with his chaotic game. Right, if Johnny Walker fights to his jab, fights at lint, he's that's the new Johnny Walker. If Johnny Walker gets drawn into chaos, he loses it all, and it's the old Johnny Walker, the mad Johnny Walker, the lad doing the worm, injuring his shoulder, as you might have heard mine crack just 2 seconds ago when I went like that. That's the Johnny Walker. That's the Henry Sellers after 1 little bit of sherry. And it feels like SBG and John Kavanagh have made him a more detail-oriented, process-oriented fighter, and to be honest, a better fighter. It might not be as fun for me and you sitting here watching it, right? And a similar thing could be said for someone like Michel Pereira, although he was pretty fun last week. But you know what I mean? He's definitely given himself a better chance to reach the very top of that division, because the athleticism, the craziness, the madness will only take you so far. It really will. But this sort of game might take him a long way. Now, it's going to take a while. And it's, you know, he's already been doing it a while, but it looks like he's improving and improving and improving. And that's why I think this will be a longer fight. I think both of the guys will be trying to fight long from the outside. I think both guys will be trying to land that leg kick inside as well. I think both guys will be trying to avoid it. So then maybe you see, like, that's where kind of seconds get worn off and things like that. I just think it'll be a longer fight. So that's why I'm going for bet number 4, over 1.5 rounds, minus 150. Now, to the flyer of the week on the same fight as I continue on here. I'm going for Johnny Walker by decision at plus 800. I had to go for this. Honestly, I'm not sure who'll win this fight. I'm probably leaning Ankalaev, to be honest. He is a minus 375 favourite, plus 285 for Walker straight up. But as I just said, I do think this fight will be a longer fight. I think it'll probably go to a decision. And if you're giving me plus 800 in a fight I think is, you know, it's a close fight. It's not relatively close. I think it will be a close fight just because the way I think the fight will go. I think the both will be a little bit weary about the power because of the position they find themselves in the division as well, where they could not necessarily fight for a title off of this, but maybe they could. You know, Ankalaev fought for a title in his last fight, didn't he, in the draw? So maybe, you know, they're both at that position. That's when you kind of fight a little bit safer, maybe. And like one knockdown by Johnny Walker, one big shot by Johnny Walker, one takedown where, you know, Walker lands on top, and that changes that fight. You know, it changes. And let's say in the third round where they've gone 1-1, you know, Ankalaev to win by decision is plus 250. That's a big difference. Plus 550 of a difference there between the two of them. I think that's a lot. Now, maybe you think, Ankalaev will win, and maybe there's a disparity in your thinking there. And there's no problem with that. This is a flyer at the end of the day. If it was straight up, as I said, I'd probably pick Ankalaev. But as my fourth bet there suggested, I'm not really comfortable picking a winner in this fight, to be honest. I respect the ability of Johnny Walker these days. And like a guy who is big and strong and athletic fighting a more technical game is so dangerous. Like, unbelievably dangerous. Like, look at, say, a Dos Anjos who did that. And funny, the people come up are Brazilians. Dos Anjos, Charles Oliveira, a guy who did that as well. Very dangerous. Very dangerous. So, yeah, I like that. A genuine flyer at plus 800. Those are the 5 bets for the week. Right. Let's look through some of the other bets for the week. I've gone through the top 3 fights here, I suppose, as well as the Aliskerov and Warlley Alves fight. I was really looking at this Gufarov-Nurmagomedov fight. Nurmagomedov line opened up at minus 198, and he's gone out now to, let me just look here, minus 225. Which... Gafarov even, he's a good fighter. I've watched him. I think he fought one championship and places. I've watched him for a good while, and he can fight. And Saeed, obviously he can fight as well. I think that might be a little bit wide here. I do think Nurmagomedov will win. I don't know what I'd be betting. I'm in minus 225 though, I'll put it that way. I also don't think I'd bet on Muhammad Makhachev at minus 450. I do think he'll win, but that seems very wide to me. And actually, I think that bet, let me just quickly look at this here, it has changed. Plus 400, that opened that for Tim Elliott. He's now plus 330. So people have bet on Tim Elliott. Makhachev's coming off of that bad knee injury. And look, he had a bad knee injury because he almost got submitted in the last fight. Tim Elliott's a very good submission guy. He's not without a chance here. There's no doubt about that. But Makhachev, I think, is a big favourite. And, I'd probably have him at minus 300 maybe. I think minus 450 is way too big in that one. Again, avoid. Muhammad Yahya is just about the underdog here, minus 155 for Peak, plus 125 for I like Basharat, but I do not like him at minus 600 against Victor Henry, who's plus 425 in some places there. Again, that's an avoid for me. Javid is a good fighter, but I know he's as good as his brother necessarily. Henry's an old hat. I probably wouldn't still pick Henry, but I don't think it's a massive one. Cedric Dumas is a favourite against Abu Ali Taizar with the spuds here in his back pocket. I'm sure he will be he'll be looking to get in at plus 180 there. I like Dumas that one. I really like Jubli, but he's minus 325 there against Mike Brendan. This is a fight I've really struggled with, Naimov and Wood. I went back and watched the Naimov fight, and he got a really good knockout against Jamie Malarkey, but he was losing that fight. It was his UFC debut, a little bit of jitters, but you knock out a guy like Jamie Malarkey at 155, now you're fighting a 135 or a 145. Again, if you were to give me minus 340 on Wood or plus 260 on Naimov, I'm taking Naimov there, if I'm being honest. I think Wood is a tremendous fighter with like top 10 level ability, but I don't think at 145 he's going to be able to do it. And I hate saying that because I fucking hate weight cutting, but that's just my opinion on that. Jinryu Frey is a big underdog against Dadakova, who's minus 600. I don't know why I got a Cork accent there, but I did. And then Bruno Silva is the underdog at plus 200 against the minus 250 favourite Magomedov, who I think will win as well. All right, everyone. Those are the prices for this weekend. Again, the main event prices, just to look at it. Usman and Chimaev, the favourite. Chimaev minus 275 plus 215 for Usman. Volkanovski is the underdog at plus 200 for the minus 250 Makhachev. And my top 5 bets for this week are as follows. I'm going for that Chimaev bet to win by decision, plus 250 to minus 250 then for Makhachev, straight up money line bet. I'm going for Aliskerov to win in either round 1 or round 2 at -180. I'm going for -150 in the Ankalaev Walker fight. That it goes over a round and a half. And then for the flyer of the week, I'm going for Johnny Walker by decision over Muhammad Ankalaev at +800. Magomed Ankalaev. Magomed. I always call him Muhammad Ankalaev for some reason. Magomed Ankalaev. So yeah, those are the 5 bets for the week. Let me know your bet for the week in the comment section below. Thank you to everybody for tuning in. Thank you to John Brannigan and all the Sherdog team as well for the great work they put in during the week to get all of this possible. And my name is Sean Sheehan for that beautiful website of Sherdog.com. And I'll see you all next time.